This is our FB Live group takeover, and today we have Alexys Robs. Alexys is the founder of Balance Branding in Lakeland, Florida, where she has been empowering small businesses with innovative AI solutions and dynamic branding since 2020. Her eclectic career has included roles as a licensed cosmetologist, an elementary school secretary, and an outreach coordinator for the Girl Scouts, all united by her passion for community service and improvement. As a dedicated wife and mother, Alexys deeply values building community with entrepreneurship. She offers VIP days, providing clients with impactful, quality work in condensed timelines. Alexys is committed to sharing her extensive knowledge on utilizing AI, Google tools, and Canva to enhance small business operations. Join her as she explores the transformative power of strategic branding. Alexys, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here.
Yes, I am excited, and I'm going to go ahead and let you take it on. But what I wanted to say to people that are listening, this is part of our guest teachers for Monetizing Mompreneur Society, and then Alexys has graced us with her mini training, I would say a masterclass on what she's going to be going over on her challenge. So stick to the end. We have an amazing conversation. Hello, welcome to Monetizing Mompreneurs podcast, where I take you behind the scenes with industry leaders, entrepreneurs, moms, working professionals, and amazing people pursuing their passions and going for their dreams. And I'm your host, Linda Mendable.
I'm Alexys Robs. That's me there. I am the owner of Balance Branding, and I am talking to you guys today about branding and how we can get that synced in 5 days. We can wrap this up, get some real brand clarity about your messaging, and really get you guys excited about your brand again. If you have been doing business for a little bit, or maybe you rushed and got started, I'll start with my story. When I started in 2020, I had been helping people with their businesses for years. It was not official, but it was just kind of things that I was passionate about, helping people get started or helping people establish their brands. And so I would be like, oh, we got to clean that logo up. That logo looks a mess, or we can do better than that. Why does that website look like that? And I'd just be helping people. And so my mom was like, you should, think about doing that as a business. And so I started in 2020, and I kind of just jumped right in. I was like, okay, I'm just going to do it. And so I created a logo in like 2 minutes, and I put a website together in like 5, and I was just giving people rates, and here we go, we got started, just to say, hey, I jumped in and I'm ready to go. But then a year or two later, I was looking, I was like, this doesn't really look like me. It's not really gelling with who I am as a business owner. It was good to get started. It was professional, but it was not really how I wanted to convey my messaging and what I wanted to show up as a business owner. And so I started changing some things. And so I really sat down and I was like, what does my voice sound like now? And I'm not talking about this kind of squeaky voice that I have here on the camera. That's another issue that we'll talk about a different day. But my brand voice, what does my voice sound like? Who do I want to resonate with? Who do I want to talk to the most? Because I had some bad clients. If anybody's like me and had a few where it's just like, ooh, I don't want to do that again. We did not gel. This was not a good working relationship. They did not understand who I was as a person, and we weren't vibing, right? And I said, how can we prevent that from happening? And so I really got settled in and thought about, okay, who do I want to talk to? How do I want to sound? And what does that look like, right? And I thought about it, and that's really truly a huge part of your branding and your messaging. People think about branding and they think, oh, pretty colors. We want to make sure that um, my colors look good and my website looks nice, which is wonderful, and I want you to do that. But I think the first part is really discovering what your voice is and what your values are as a brand owner or a business owner. And so secret number 1, Let me move myself out of the way. I'm sure you guys can see this. Okay, so secret number one to your brand brilliance is unearth your core values, right? And so I have another client and who's also a friend of mine who does this wonderful presentation on your purpose and things like that. So I happened to do a retreat with her and kind of came up with some core values for myself. And so I think humor is one of my core values. Honesty is one of my core values. I want people to feel like I'm trustworthy and dependable, and their secrets are safe with me, but they can also count on me to be effective and get the job done. These are things that I like to communicate and convey, right? These are very, very consistent across all the things that I do. I don't want you to ever say, oh, I went to a class with Alexis and it was a bunch of fluff. She was just talking the whole time. Because I don't even like to talk like that, girl. I don't even want to do all that. I want you to feel like you got something valuable from spending time with me. And so that's one of the values that I carry. So I want that to show in my brand. So we're going to talk about those things in my day one for your brand challenge, brand sync challenge. Day one will be all about, hey, what are your core values? What does that look like in your brand? How can we get those established? And just really getting that commitment into, hey, what it is that you're doing and how we can make sure that that's sounding the same throughout all the things that you do. So my little thing here says, ever feel like your brand is just going through the motions? Let's dig deep and uncover what really fuels your fire. I think it's really important to do that work first, right? Before we talk about, oh, we want to make sure things look good, you want to do this work, which is what fuels your fire? What problems do you actually want to solve? Who do you want to work with? Who's your ideal person that you want to talk to? That sort of thing. So this is number one. So we'll do a value worksheet. You guys have access to this. And so if you join my challenge, all of the resources you get to keep. And then at the end, if you like missed a day or something, you will have access to be able to kind of purchase all 5 days together in like a bundle. So that's an option as well. So day one, like I said, we're unearthing core values. And I'm super excited about that part because I feel like this is really the meat and potatoes here. Okay, so number two is all about your visuals. So I know I said we weren't talking about visuals on day one, but it's a big deal. We're still talking about it because if you are using fonts from 1997, or if you are, mixing colors that clash and cause people's heads to hurt, people might not take you very seriously, or they might not feel like they can trust you. So your logos, just kind of doing like an assessment and saying, hey, what is it that I need to be doing here? What do I need to be showing up as in that way? We'll be definitely going over that. So we'll be doing on this day, our activity will be a mood board, right? And so a mood board really is just a wonderful place to kind of circle back to. And so if you say, okay, what is it that I'm looking for? What do I want to show up as? How do I want to feel? I love doing this, especially with people who like own a brick and mortar business, because it's like, what's the experience you want people to feel like when they're walking in the door? And then you can do the same thing as a service provider. When somebody is walking in the door of your business virtually, how do you want them to feel? Do you want them to feel comfortable? Do you want them to feel relaxed? Do you want them to feel strictly professional? And, we're by the book and that's it. How do you want them to feel? How do you convey that visually? Right. And so we'll be talking about those things. We'll be going through that. And that's an activity we'll kind of do together on camera so everybody can kind of show us their mood boards and see if it resonates in the group. So I'm excited about day two. And then day three, so crafting a voice that echoes. I love this, right? So we talked about this kind of in the core values part, but crafting a voice that echoes. I want you guys to think about your brand and what that sounds like. And so if your brand was a song, what would it sound like? Is it smooth jazz? Are you old rock music? Are you smooth and classical? Right? How do you feel? Right? I like lo-fi. Right? I like lo-fi. I like to feel like I still have a little bit of rhythm happening here, but also kind of like a calming effect, right? I like my tagline for my brand is managing chaos, right? We're managing chaos and we're crafting something new, right? And so I like to feel like, okay, we still are having some traction here, but also it's a calming effect, it's calming presence, but not as calming as like a classical lullaby, right? I want to feel like we're still getting things done and we're calm about it. We're not anxiety riddled and we're not overwhelmed. We are feeling like we're getting things done. Linda, if you were to say, hey, this is what my brand sounds like if it was a song, what would you say?
Wow, you're putting me on the spot.
Well,
Um,
it's just us right now. So,
it would be a video game tune.
okay,
That's
okay.
what it would be.
Like a Mario Kart sort of vibe, or
Like a Kirby's world.
okay. She said it would be, I could see that because you kind of have a little techiness about you and you kind of want to pull the systems together and you're really big on that. So I could totally see that. Um,
Game, big game.
Big game. And it's a big game. And we're having fun while we're doing it, right?
Yes,
And so
exactly.
we'll be definitely going through this. And so we'll be crafting your voice guidelines. And this is a good place that I like to insert AI here. And so I tell people all the time that if they're like, oh, I tried to get content from ChatGPT or I tried to get content from these various places and it doesn't sound like me. And so it just sounds like the robot. It sounds like everybody else. So we kind of really dig deep here and kind of talk about what your voice sounds like and kind of give you the actual adjectives and adverbs that you can use to help your AI tools get you content that sounds like you. Okay. If you are out here and you're talking and you say, I do not sound anything like that, and I do not want to fool these people into thinking that's what I sound like, we can help you with that. Right. And so my activity in the crafting your brand voice, I have a worksheet, workbook sort of thing that you'll be going through in this on this day, on day 3. And that is crafting your voice with the help of AI. And so it's just a little fun thing that I like to do to kind of get people intrigued in using your AI tools in a way that is actually going to complement you in your business. I could go on and on about how the robots are taking over, right? And how if you're not using them for your advantage, it will catch up with you sooner or later. And so I could do that all day. We're not doing that today, though. Today's talk is about the Brand Sync Challenge. But I want you all to really think about how you can lean in and with your brand messaging using AI. And so sometimes if you are not the person who's a wordsmith, right, if you're like, I know how I want it to sound, but I can't get the words out. These tools can really help bolster that. It can help make sure that you sound consistent from your website to your emails to your social media posts. And I feel like that voice is what really attracts your ideal client. So it kind of all, we're like, this is why we call it the brand sync. It all syncs together, it all works together. Day 4, we're going to engage like a pro. Engagement is not just about talking, it's about connecting. So discover the art of meaningful interactions that keep your audience coming back for more. Okay, so if you're like me, I'm raising my hand here. I do a terrible job of chit-chatting with people on the internet. Okay. One, I blame the fact that I'm a millennial. And when we got on here, when we first got on the internet, folks were like, y'all better stop talking to these people. They're strange. They're gonna steal your information. These aren't real people. And so I just kind of started off not talking to folks on the internet. I just wasn't doing it. Right. And now they're like, hey, we got to engage. So, one, we can talk about that level of engagement. The other part is speaking to people face to face and engaging and telling people what you do as a brand or as a business. Right. And so, clarifying that message. Linda has been so wonderful. She's been a great resource in helping to let's get that message clarified. Let's talk about that. Let's figure out what that is. But I take it a little bit further when it's just like, okay, let's give it some practice. So there will be an exercise that'll be live where we are going to be communicating with each other about what our group or what our brand does and how we can improve on making sure that messaging is up to par. Right. And so we will have a workbook that you can work on, but at the end, we will be working in the group together to kind of make sure that when we say, hey, my name's Alexys, I own Balance Branding. I help small business owners use AI tools to optimize their brand. I also help them kind of with their messaging, their website. I do all that stuff. And so when I say those things to people, I want that to resonate with them and I want them to feel like, oh, yeah, I want to learn more about that. Or I've heard about those AI tools and I can prompt them with conversation, right? So we will talk about those things, but we'll also kind of work on looking at how we can work out our content calendar to give us people who want to respond to us. And so engaging posts in that way, but also engaging people in real life. And so we want to do a little bit of both. The day 4 is kind of power packed. It's a lot of self work, but also group work. I'm excited about that. And I'm hoping that we'll have a few ladies who are excited about joining us from Monetizing Mompreneurs, because I think it'll be fun. And I think it'll be a really good way to engage with other business owners who can expand your network. I'm going to do a little segue here because I believe that building out your network and having a community of people who get it really makes a difference as a business owner, especially if you're a solopreneur, which is who I talk to the most. Being a solopreneur and you are all the things, you're wearing all the hats, having friends or people who you can relate to, I think makes you feel not alone. It makes you feel like you can keep going on. It helps give you encouragement. And when you're feeling like, okay, this is so overwhelming, I could just go back and get a job real quick. I could go to get a job and work and get that 9 to 5 and have my consistent paychecks and not worry about it, right? And so having that community helps kind of keep you on guard and keeps you aware of what the trends are happening, keeps you aware of who's in your circle that can benefit you as well. And so I think it's really important that, like I said, that engagement level goes beyond just like Facebook comments and Instagram comments, but actually goes a little bit further and helps you develop connections. Day 5 is like a wrap up day. We're putting all the things together. And so we're talking strategy. And so for day 5, we will be trying to see what you worked on that whole week. Right. So if you've ever launched a brand element that felt like a flop, oh, you put a logo out and everybody hated it, or you called yourself trying to refresh your brand on your own and you're like, oh, it's still not giving what I wanted it to give, right? We can talk about how we can make sure that doesn't happen. And so we will be pulling the pieces from day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 together and seeing if you can have a little complete packet that you feel comfortable with trying to roll out. So if you said, okay, we went through here and I went through my mood board and I saw that I like these colors and I feel like those would resonate, but my brand is way over here. Let's see if we can get those switched over real quick, right? Get those hex codes, get it updated. If you said on day 3 that your voice was not sounding like yourself and you weren't attracting the people that you wanted to attract because your voice was off, let's change those verbs out. Let's change those words up. Let's see what we can work on to implement that. And so day 5 is all about trying to implement and evaluate where you've been at and what you've been doing. And so we will have worksheets. There's going to be some videos. There's going to be a little bit of quizzes, and it's all going to be happening inside of this brand sync challenge. So when we're done, this is what I hope you get out of the whole 5 days together, right? I want you to have a clearer understanding of your brand identity. Okay. I want you to be like, okay, I know what my brand is. This is what it stands for. This is who I'm trying to attract. And this is how I want it to be perceived. And it is that, and it is working that way. I want you to have some increased engagement. I want you to feel fired up about going out and sharing your brand with people or communicating or connecting with other people, either you're in your industry or in industries that are adjacent to yours. And then I want you to feel like you have some strategic resources to look back on when you are feeling like you need to launch a new brand or you want to start a new product. These resources you can use them over and over again. And so if you have that brand voice worksheet, or if you have the mood board template, you can use that over and over again. So these are resources that are available to you to use. And I would love for you to be like, okay, I can always circle back to my mood board if I'm feeling lost, right? I can always circle back to what my voice sounds like in my workbook for what my brand voice is if I feel like I'm redundant, right? And I want you also feel like you have support because you now have connection with me. And hopefully, like I said, my brand voice is I want to feel like I'm giving you things that are beneficial, that are useful, and that you feel like you can trust me to come back to. So my 5 days will be going over those things, and I'm really excited about that with you. Now, after the challenge, and say you went through all 5 days and you're like, okay, I still need a little bit of help. You will have the ability to connect with me one-on-one. As Linda shared in my bio, I do VIP days, and I love helping small business owners get their brands going. And this is all excellent pre work for either my website VIP day or my what I call Get Balanced VIP day, where we kind of pull these things together and really hit you hard with things that you can walk away with that you can implement within that first 90 days. And so, of course, I also do webinars, I do in person seminars here in Lakeland. And so, those are other ways you can connect with me. But I'm really excited about this challenge. We'll be starting next Wednesday, 6 p.m. I wanted to start this Wednesday, but again, next Wednesday is going to work out a little bit better. Give me a little bit more time to ramp up. And so I'm so excited about you guys joining me. And I'm so excited that I had this opportunity to share with you all. Linda, I'm handing it back to you.
Alexis, thank you so much for sharing that. And what I want to go over is kind of what made, like you talked a little bit of what made you do branding. So, what made you, like, what's your story? How did you go from an idea to now here, right?
Yeah.
Teaching a
So
class on branding.
this is so fun because I started out doing social media management and hating it. I started out doing social media management because I was like, I can make a post on social media, but I hated it. I felt like I was on my phone all day. I felt like it was just very constant. In order to social media manage well, it felt like it was and it was before a lot of these new tools came out. So it was like I had to make the post, schedule the post, follow up with comments. And I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. I said, what's the part that I really liked? I really liked kind of the design part of it. I really liked helping people with their messaging. And I didn't realize what it was called. And so they'd say, oh, you want to be a graphic artist? And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know if I call myself a graphic artist. Or they'd say, oh, you want to be a webmaster? I don't know because I don't know no code. I don't know if I want to do that. And so I just kept kind of playing around with what were the pieces that I actually liked and that I actually wanted to do. And so what I figured out was I'm doing branding. I said, oh, okay. And so it was really interesting. And it was kind of a fun way of tying in all those things that I talked about that I've done before. As a school secretary, I learned how to make connections with people and kind of have a little bit better organization skills and how to talk to people clearly. As an outreach coordinator, I learned how to get out in front of kids, big groups of kids, and get them engaged quickly, right? I learned how to rally a crowd real quick. I learned how to gate tasks quickly, right? I learned how to do that stuff. As a cosmetologist, I was learning color theory and I was engaging with customers. And you know how they say your hairstylist is like a therapist. I was doing that sort of work with my clientele. And so it's kind of just like a fun way of pulling all those things together. I had to stop doing hair because I had a pinched nerve in my neck and it went all the way down my arm. And so I was dropping utensils, I was dropping combs, dropping flat irons. And they were like, you're gonna have to do all this physical therapy. And I said, I can't. I was poor. I said, I can't do that. That's a lot. I'm gonna switch it up. And so I started thinking of different ways that I could interact. And so every time that I've had one of those challenges where it's like, okay, it's time to pivot again, instead of leaning back and kind of feeling sorry for myself, I always kind of leaned forward and say, okay, what's next? And so that's what this branding journey has been for me. And I really do love that part of kind of getting to the meat and potatoes of other people's brands. I love that. I love helping people show visually kind of what they've been thinking about in their head and helping that come together nicely. And so I always feel like I've helped people, but I still get to be creative. And so that's kind of where I've always landed in any of my careers. I get to help people, but also that itch that I have for creativity is also being scratched. So
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that's part of like that entrepreneurial spirit, kind of like being resourceful and kind of like instead of looking at our limitations as a hindrance, actually looking at it like, wait,
right.
there's a better way, or I got to figure this out, right? And having that resourcefulness. Why did you decide to? I know in the beginning you said I helped you a little bit with that, but why did you decide a challenge? Like for real, like why did you decide to do a challenge?
Challenges are engaging. And so if that's something that I was looking for, which it was, then I love the engagement of it. And I do love helping people kind of in a larger scale. And so I was looking forward to figure out ways I can reach more people because I love my one-on-one. That's what I do. I love my one-on-one. I love kind of really hunkering down with the person and getting to know all their insides of their business, right? But if I want to be able to spread this message in a wider form of how you can kind of get these brand essentials established, I feel like a challenge is a really fun way to do it. I feel like it'll be engaging, and I feel like it'll get these resources out to more people at one time. So it was exciting for me, and it also is a challenge for me to try something new, which is what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to reach more people quickly, and so it seemed like a good way to start trying to accelerate. So that's why I was excited about doing a challenge.
Amen. I mean, what I've discovered in the challenges, like people are also interested in the replay. I just got some emails, someone saying, "Hey, I'm not able to make the challenge. I'm not able to make this FB live, but I totally want the replay, right?" And
Mm-hmm.
I think that also like attests, like people are looking to learn from professionals, from experts. And I really feel like our stories and our experiences and the way that we teach is so unique that in order for people to understand kind of like what makes us and why you should kind of like come into our world and maybe dig a little bit deeper, I
Right.
think that challenge really highlights that, right?
For sure. Say I appreciate your style as far as okay, you're engaging and you're going to share the tools and you're going to kind of if people have questions, you're going to answer them, and I love that. And so it was encouraging to me because that's kind of how I am. It's like I don't want to gatekeep. I want to share the information. I want people to do well. I want people to succeed. And so you were a good model as far as letting folks know, hey, you can still be successful and give people information. So I was excited about that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because okay, have you ever heard someone or have you ever come across someone and they're so knowledgeable and you win some nuggets of wisdom and they've always appear very positively in your mind because of that. Like you admire them a little bit more or you're like, wow, they didn't need to tell me that information that takes me to the next level. Yeah, and it allows you to be like, you know what? I need to go a little bit deeper with this person because if they're giving this gold, I can only imagine with the questions
Right.
that I'm asking or wanting to know with my specific situation,
Right.
person may have a good response. I found that it's always a good thing because not everyone kind of like gets the whole shebang, right? Not everybody gets
Right.
all of it. And unless maybe they show up or they're there constantly, but we're so busy as moms, we can't be there constantly. So the things that you do give that they do receive, like for the person that may be watching this or watching the replay, they're like, man, this is so insightful. To that person, you know, that gets them a little bit closer into your world, right? And like they may have heard you, that's the
Yes.
first time they've heard you, right? And they may not even hear
Yes.
you again. But if you pop up again somewhere else, again, you appear very positive to them. They're like, let me check out what they're doing. So it just brings them people a little bit, you're pulling them a little bit closer and closer into your world. My
Yes.
next question is where do you feel like you are in your business and what's your future to where you're going?
So I have slowly this year been starting to kind of break out from more background behind the scenes things and getting more in front of people. So I've been doing some speaking engagements. I've been leading some workshops. I've been doing some things like that. And so I feel like I'm going to start doing some more of those things. Every time I give like a presentation or something, people are like, you really should consider doing this more often. And so it just takes a lot from me energy wise. And so I've been learning how to monitor and manage my energy so that I can still show up because people find it beneficial and I want to reach the people and I want to give them what they need. But at the same time, I want to make sure that I have enough in my cup and in my tank so that it's not so depleting when I'm done. But I do see myself doing that more. I have been looking at ways to get some more products out to people so that they can have resources at the ready for them in their branding journeys. So these worksheets and workbooks and things that I've been developing for this brand sync challenge will be available on my website. And then I'll have a couple other things that I've been working on that'll be available as well. So just kind of building out that product suite. And then of course, I look forward to doing more challenges like this. I'll probably run this challenge again in either next quarter or something like that because I think it's so powerful and it's so impactful. I think it's going to be very helpful for people because man, getting your brand voice and your messaging together, it's top tier. It really changes the game for you. And it's just, I kind of use it as a guiding light. Like if I does this fit under what I am offering or what I said I'm offering and what I said I do? And so just kind of being able to circle back to that and make sure it lines up. So any other service or product or whatever that you offer, you can say, does it line up with what I said I'm doing and what I said I'm doing in this season? I think it's really important. And so just kind of helping people in that regard. Of course, like I said, I am transitioning out of toddler mom into kid mom life. And so
Wow.
seeing what that looks like and what those different challenges are, again, jumping in there and seeing how I can show up best for my son in this time as well. When I started my business, he was a baby. And so I was taking him to meetings with me or I'd be on Zooms because we were in the middle of a pandemic and I'd be on Zooms and he'd be in my lap, that sort of thing. And now he's in school full time and going from having my little coworker here to just managing the schedule now of, okay, I can work through these hours, but on this day it's early release. So I got to go pick him up early, or on this day they're out. So I'm going to have to coordinate with my husband or whatever, looking into those things. That's kind of what's happening in this new season. I'm excited about it though, and can't wait to share kind of all these different ideas that I have with my audience and the ones that are growing.
Yeah, amen. I mean, I hear there's different challenges, right? For me right now, I'm loving where I'm at. Like my youngest is 5 and they're out of the toddler, baby stage.
Yeah.
It's so freeing because you're no longer, being, hyper vigilant on what they're putting in their mouth, hyper vigilant on when they need to go potty, hyper
Mm.
vigilant on when they need a snack or crib
Right.
or need a nap or,
I
like,
couldn't wait to get rid of the baby bag. Just
oh,
it was such a relief to just be able to like grab the kid and walk out the door.
yeah.
So I mean, it's been really nice in that regard to just be like, hey, I'm gonna go. You need something to drink? Well, we can grab a water bottle out while we're here, or you can grab your own water bottle on the way out the door. That bit of mental load kind of being freed up has been very helpful as well, just so I have some capacity for other things. And so I think it's just been a really good time for me to be linked with you, to do this stuff and kind of work through some of that brain work, I think, that needed to be done in order to be like, okay, yeah, I feel confident I can do this and I can show up in this space and it not be overwhelming. So in this society, I feel like you have given so much good information in there, but also it's just cool to see what other women are accomplishing and doing out here. And so when we first got started, and we get on those calls, those other every other week calls have been very helpful. But just hearing what other people are doing currently and what they're working on, just helps to with the feeling of, hey, you're not alone in this. And like I was talking about earlier, that community level, I feel like is such a big deal. Being a entrepreneur, being a solopreneur out here in these streets, man, because you see other people who are like, I'm struggling with that issue as well. We're all working on
Yeah.
it together. Even today, trying to get on this Zoom call, and we were kind of helter skelter because technology was not our friend today, and Facebook has had another update and change, and we're trying to keep up.
I can't stream like in the old way that it was just so easy to stream. I had to do a workaround, stream into my
Right.
page to get into the group. So that's definitely, and I'm no longer putting those daily posts that I used to put on, right? Because it just doesn't,
Mhm.
I have to schedule it in within Facebook. To do that, I used to have, Meet Edgar that I would have to,
Right.
schedule the post, and it was just so easy. I mean, easier than just going in there manually doing each and every single post because they just do it on a recurring. It's crazy.
But even hearing that, it's like, okay, whereas before you might get frustrated and be like, oh, Facebook's out to get me. It feels
Mm,
personal. It feels like if Facebook is out to get me. I was working this tool and the tool's not working anymore. But now you're in a community. You can either brainstorm together, like, okay, what is our workaround? What are you doing to fix this? Or at least having the option to kind of talk that or hash that out with someone who is experiencing it in real time with you. Or how
yeah.
did you pivot when you had a sick kid and you had to switch that up real quick? How did you pivot? What does that look like? And knowing that it's okay. I think that's kind of why my ideal clients are always those solopreneurs, working moms, people who are trying to get out here, because they need to know that it's okay to be flexible and give yourself grace and continue to show up. Everything does not
Yeah.
have to be picture perfect. And so, as someone who is a recovering perfectionist when it comes to work stuff, I resonate with that. And it's like, okay, done over perfect.
I love it.
And, being able to pivot, it's give yourself grace. And so, these things that I'm repeating to myself, I also repeat to my clientele. And I
Yeah.
think being in these society spaces has been very helpful with even those things where it's just like, okay, I'm switching this up a little bit and it's okay. And you can take your pivot when you need to, or take a rest when you need to, and just hop back in.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just been very helpful with those sort of things. And even the checking in, I think the one-on-ones with you that you got, that I got, because I guess I did one of the first tiers, but when you get a couple one-on-ones and just that check-in and the accountability in that regard, like, okay, what's the hold up, what's the breakdown, just kind of seeing that and then kind of getting reinvigorated to keep doing the work has been very helpful.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest lessons I've learned, when you're about to do a challenge, right? And we have the community, and sometimes we can have this pressure over us, like, it's up to us to bring their success, right?
But yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, where you feel the
Yeah.
pressure to, did I do enough to make sure that they, got the information, or did I do enough to make sure that they feel comfortable executing?
Yeah, as we move forward, I feel as though I'm actually letting go of that. I'm actually letting go of, like, it's not my responsibility, how someone else, does the work or shows up. My responsibility is to show up and to make sure that I provide, bring my best every single day. But
Right.
as far as them, you know, it's up to them. It's up to the students to make sure that, they do the work and they show up and, have that understanding, like, it's about doing the work. Like, I'm sure you're doing the work and, you're seeing it's it's work.
It's right. Well, when you think about like a 5-day challenge, and for each day, you need to have resources for that challenge, right? And so going from concept in your head to bringing it to fruition, those are two different things. And if you're like me, like I said, who's just battled with perfectionism a little bit, I have an idea about what I want things to look like and how I want them to be presented. And I said, I can't have no branding challenge and my stuff looks jankety. I can't have that on me.
There was a scientific study done, and it was about the brain. And so basically, the study was when someone did hard things and they actually accomplished those hard things, like the neural networks was more connected, and they were able, when you go through like the hard portion, is able to connect it more, right, and be able to follow through. When you actually do hard things and you give up in the middle of doing that hard thing, you actually create a space that you're more likely to give up when you're faced with that same hardness. And so I found that fascinating. I was like, wow, it's really developing grit, right? Really developing that
Yes.
resourcefulness.
Also, there goes your video game music again. She
Oh,
said the
yep,
neural
yep.
the neural links. Okay, the neural links inside of your brain. There goes that video game music again. But
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting
for sure.
and very accurate because, like, I started to work out again. And because I understand, like, there's always like that difficult portion, I know how to push myself and get over that hump. But if I try to work out and I fail, it's more likely I would fail again on hard things that makes me feel a certain way. It's a trigger. It becomes a trigger of just, let me let this thing
Mhm.
go. So we can either develop a positive trigger and, like, this isn't the time for me to push it harder,
Right.
right? And get over the hump. Because let me tell you, after not working out for like hardly working out for like the last 2 years and then getting back into it, it's been challenging, like, to say the least, like, excruciating pain. I was like, I understand now why people, give up in the middle of it, or because it's excruciating pain. Like, sometimes you wake
Right.
up and you're wondering how you're gonna get down the stairs because I have, I
Hmm.
got a two-story place. It's hard. But when I heard about, that scientific study, I was like, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, because
For
having you
sure.
had like having, so it's about, I'm also seeing, in order to motivate myself, have you seen Fat to Fit?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, it's a series. And basically
Oh,
these trainers want to help their trainees, and they decide to like gain 60 pounds, 30 to 60 pounds in 4 months, right? Like gain a lot of weight, no exercise and stop exercising, just so they understand how they realize, like what people go through, that are overweight and stuff like that, and how
right,
to resonate with them more because you know, when
right,
they don't know what I go through, right? They don't know how hard it is. They don't know how difficult it
right,
is to get back into the habit of getting in shape. But they go through this process, and if you see them going, they get very emotional. Yes, they get very
some
emotional.
have a little bit more empathy. Okay.
They do. They have a little bit more empathy. There was this one guy that was pushing. He was a trainer, right? He wasn't doing it with first. So first, he allowed the person that he's inspiring, right? So they're both, they come into the zone. They're gonna do a workout plan, right? The trainer has, like, this one particular trainer. He's gained 64 pounds, right, in the last 4 months, and this is their first workout. So he first challenges, his trainee to work out first. He's already lost a couple of weight, so he's like been in the process of losing weight. He's still a bit
Mhm.
overweight, right? And basically, he's taking him through a workout. He's like, "Don't stop, keep going," right? He's doing his normal workout routine. I'm like, I'm a little bit like, what's gonna happen, right? He's now his turn to go through the same regimen. He struggled, and yeah, he struggled through it, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe how hard this is," because he thought he couldn't reach it. But what was
Right,
very inspiring was that the trainers eventually did go down to their starting weight. They got back in shape, and they felt like themselves again. They're like, oh my gosh, I felt like myself, because they do go through like an emotional turmoil
right.
type of deal. But that really made me take a look at, like, wow, it's really about developing the habits and the skills to finishing something through that helps
Yeah.
us when we reach that resistance, when we reach that wall, to get over that hump. Because we're gonna have those times. And look at you, like you're pushing through, you showed up
Yes.
here, right?
That's right.
Even though you're doing it for next week, you're still doing it.
No, we're
And
still doing it for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and you're committed to it. So I just want to say, like that's your grit, that's your resourcefulness. Like, congratulations, you just developed new neurons in your mind.
And like I said, back to what I was talking about too, where it's like I want everyone that I'm working with to understand. I understand life happens, but we still have goals to accomplish, and we're gonna meet those goals. We're gonna get the things done, and so it may take longer than we anticipated, but that does not mean that we're quitting or we're not gonna finish the things that we start. We finish things that we start, and we do well. And so every round goes higher and higher, every bit gets better, right? And so if we're just, even if this is my first challenge, and even if I have 3 people sign up, wonderful. Next time I'll probably have 10. It's like we're developing those habits, the people are coming in. I talked with you on a podcast last year, maybe 2 years ago, and
ChatGPT.
yes, about ChatGPT. And because of that, people were contacting me wanting to know more about ChatGPT. And because of me talking with you, and because I did a few podcasts, and because I had done a few classes online, I feel comfortable. Like I just did a presentation for our NABO group here in Tampa, Lakeland, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners. And so I was able to talk with those ladies about, how they can use AI in their businesses and how those things can help them. And just kind of spreading that messaging that these tools are helpful and useful. And as women business owners need to be leaning into them, right? Just saying that messaging has kind of opened doors just because I was willing to get out of my comfort zone. Because even though I sound well put together, it requires a lot of energy for me to show up in these spaces, right? But I've been able to become more comfortable showing up, and it requires less energy, right? And so maybe I won't need a nap after this, or maybe I won't need a Red Bull to finish my day. but because I've built these muscles up, as you were
Yes.
talking about, those neurons in my brain aren't overfiring.
Yeah, because whatever thing that you're learning new, it makes a new trail in your mind, right? Those are how habits, those are how triggers, the neurons are firing, and then it creates those pathways. And sometimes you can rewire your mind, which is mind blowing. So
Yes. And so I've
great.
been working on that part, right? Where it's like, okay, maybe it doesn't need to feel like you're about to pass out and die every time you have to speak to someone. Maybe it can just be normal. And maybe when you get in front of people, it doesn't have to feel like anxiety riddled. You can just have your conversation and you're knowledgeable and you know what you're talking about. And so
Oh
you don't
yeah.
have to worry about people kind of coming up to you and saying, you're wrong. You don't know anything about anything because you know what you're talking about.
Is that one of your fears?
It's one of those things where it's like not necessarily a fear, but it's like I don't like arguing with people. And so I don't like going back and forth. I don't like to do that a lot. And so one of my things is like, okay, what if somebody's like gonna try to echo you down when you're trying to talk? I don't want to go back and forth with people.
There might
I don't want
be.
to.
I've had someone that came on to the society. I was doing the challenge, and she answered. She asked some tough questions. But I answered them. But it could seem a bit of haggle. But she ended up becoming a society member. So
Yeah,
there's so many different personalities, and I think it's kind of like one of the golden rules that I apply is always believing the best of whoever you're sitting down
right,
with. Because some people speak differently, they have different tones. Maybe someone may come across rude, but they don't even know that they're coming across rude, right? And so always giving that grace, and that has been
right,
magical. And like just always treating people with grace, like, and always believing the best, they're well intentions, because everything comes out anyways, like, and so I've learned that that's a great. So if you do have someone that's a bit tough, it may be because they're seeing, are you the right person for them?
right.
Um, and they do soften,
Like it wasn't even like I don't know if I would even consider it necessarily a valid fear,
Yeah.
because again, like I don't like to argue, but also I don't tend to share information unless I feel like I have a pretty good grip on
Hmm.
it.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't even valid. It was just one of those things that was like tripping me up in my head.
Oh shoot,
Um,
I get scared of that too. Like, especially with like, oh man, what do other web designers think about me as a web designer?
Man, the design world. It's we have
Ooh,
so many thoughts, right?
so
We
many
have so
rules
many
too.
thoughts. And it can be so, brutal. And people could say, "Oh, you're over there using Canva. I only use Adobe." And or
Yeah, yeah,
you're using templates. I don't believe in templates, and there's so many different varying thoughts on those things. And it's just like if I can show up
yeah,
and my stuff looks nice and neat and consistent and professional, and I don't want to go back and forth. You can have your thoughts and I can have my thoughts. And I think it's okay. And so it's just one of those things where we have to get out of our own head for some of this stuff. Like
yeah. That's all right.
you may feel that way, I may feel this way, but at the end of the day, we still are out here getting things done. And I also have to remember people whose things I've seen that are awful. Oh
Mm,
man, you were
mm.
giving fluff, fluff, fluff. You bought a white label
Oh man, yeah.
course and you
Oh,
were presenting it as your own and you don't even have a grasp of that information and they are making money. And so it's like I'm over here creating from scratch. I know what I'm talking about. I have a desire and the heart to see people win and do well, and I want them to succeed. And so we need more people like us showing up in these spaces. And so I have to keep reminding myself of that information too, because it's like we can talk ourselves out of being helpful, worrying about what other people are doing. And
one
so
of
I
the
think it's just, yeah, huge
yeah.
that we keep showing up.
Amen. Alexis, where can people find you?
You guys can find me at my website, which is brandingbalance.com. Facebook and Instagram are both Balance Branding. You can reach me on those places. And of course, you can find me inside of Monetizing Mompreneurs. You can shout me out. My name on there is Alexis Sierra because that's my middle name. And so you can find me those ways. I'd love to connect with you. You can hit me in my DMs. I'm pretty open and easy to talk to. So I'd love to chat with you guys more.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If you have a chance, stop by the website at lindamendable.com and join us over at Monetizing Mompreneurs Facebook group. I just want to say again, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening.